Today's daf is Yevamos daf Amud Beis, and we are 16 lines from the top of daf Amud Aleph Amud Beis. Ba minei Rav Yehuda me Rav Sheshes. Today's daf is being learned. There's a schus refuah shalema for Avadia ben Miriam Leah, Moshe Abba ben Devorah bas Mecha, Shmu ben Tehila, Allah Zalit b'Shalom ben Feger Rachel, Sar Nechama bas Rus Malka, Baruch ben Rachel, Yisachar ben Hindel Liba, Malka Miriam bas Esther, and Esther Kreindel bas Devorah. So we're in the middle of the very intense dafin of Masechtas Yevamos. And the truth is, these dafin are definitely the dafin that earn Masechtas Yevamos its reputation. In fact, if you think back to the beginning of the Masechta and just follow everything that we've learned up until this point, Beis and Gimel were intense Yevamos. Dalid, Hey, Vav, Zayin were very much a digression. The sugyas of Asay, Doichelois Asay, Ches, Tes, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, and Yud Gimel Amud Aleph are going to be uber intense Yevamos. And then the Be'ezus Hashem later this week, we're going to have again a very light digression. We're going to get into the sugyas of the machloikis between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. These dafin that we're learning right now are the hardest dafin in the Masechta, arguably so. If you can make it in these dafin, you can make it in Yevamos, and you can make it anywhere in Shas. But either way, we're going to continue Be'ezus Hashem to do what we do, and that is to learn three sugyas today. The sugya of Tzoras Machzir Grushasai, the sugya of Tzoras Mamenes, and the sugya of Tzoras Eilenes. So first, the sugya of Tzoras Machzir Grushasai. So what's a Machzir Grushasai? A man was married, he divorced his wife, he's allowed to remarry her, stating that it says in the Torah that in the event that his wife that got divorced married somebody else, quote, at that point, the original husband's not allowed to remarry his wife. Once she was married to somebody else, it's considered a toyeva. This pasuk is the source to the halacha of Machzir Grushasai, and with that introduction, Zok the Gemara. Rav Yehuda the Amora asked Rav Sheshes the Amora the following question: Hamachzir Grushasai Mishanises. If somebody divorced his wife, she got married to somebody else, and then he remarried her. He violated the loisase in the Torah of Machzir Grushasai, umeis, and then he died. He left over no children, so that his wife, the Gerusha that he wasn't allowed to marry, fell a yibum, and there was another wife that fell a yibum as well. So the question is, tzarasama, what's the halacha with regards to the tzara? Meaning, will the yabam be allowed to be miyabim the tzara, or will he not be allowed to be miyabim the tzara? Does the yavam even have to be miyabim the tzara, or maybe the tzara is not going to fall a yibum? Now, one thing is clear: the shaila that Rav Yehuda asked from Rav Sheshes was with regards to the tzara of the Machzir Grushasai. He never asked him about the Machzir Grushasai herself. Does she fall a yibum? Does she not fall a yibum? What's the halacha regarding the actual Machzir Grushasai? So Tosfos, Dibra Maskal Tzarasomal, already discusses why the Gemara never asked the Shaila with regards to the Machzir Grushasai, Ayin Shah. So we're going to discuss what the Gemara does discuss, and that is, what is the halacha regarding the tzara of Machzir Grushasai? So the Gemara says like this, that Rav Yehuda, when he asked this question to Rav Sheshes, so he was titled the question. He said, Rav Yosef ben Kippur, according to Rav Yosef ben Kippur, there's no shayla. Why? Because even the Rav Yosef ben Kippur, because being that Rav Yosef ben Kippur said, Tumma b'Machzir Grushasai hu d'chsiva, that when it says Tumma in the pasuk of Machzir Grushasai, it says in the Torah, La yuchal bayla harishon asher shilcha lashuv lekachta liyosloi leisha acharei asher hu tama. And Rav Yosef ben Kippur at the end of yesterday's daf, too long to recap, said very clearly that Achrei Asher Hutama is referring to this Machzir Grushasai. So being that the Torah used the word of Tumma when it was describing the Machzir Grushasai, so it's Pashit Tzarasa Kamaisa, that the Tzara is going to have a din of a Tzara Serva. Why? Because just like we saw in yesterday's daf, that Rav said, Tzara Saita Asura, my time of Tumma Ksiva Karayas. So the word Tumma means that this woman is going to have a din erva with regards to Yibum. So if Achrei Asher Hu Tama, that it says in the parasha Machzir Grushasa is referring to the Grusha herself, so the Torah used the word Tama. If the Torah used the word Tama, then the Tzara is going to have a din of a Tzaras Erva, so it's Pashit, Loiti Bayalach. I know it's without question that the halach is that this tzara is going to be kamaisa, there's going to be no yibum, there's going to be no chalitza. Now said Rav Yehuda, I could hear that maybe you'll argue that even though it's true, it says the word tuma according to Rav Yosef and Kippur in the parasha Machzir Grushasai, but it also says in the Torah Toyevahi. And you could argue that maybe Toyeva here is a miut, and it's coming to say that she's a Toyeva, only the Machzir Grushasai, as opposed to the Tzara, maybe she's not considered a Toyeva. But the Gemara says, no, that's not what it means. Because what the Pasuk really means is he Toyeva, she's considered a Toyeva, however, ve'im baneha Toyeva. However, her children are not going to be Toyevim. So in the event that someone's Machzir Grushasai and then has a child, the child is not going to be a apostle, the child is going to be a kosher. So says, but as it relates to the Tzara, Toyeva, she's going to be a Toyeva. Point is, Rav Yehuda asked Rav Sheshes, what's the halacha with a tzaras Machzir Grushasai? And he said, according to Rav Yosef and Kippur, who holds that when it says Achrei Asher Hu Tama in the parsha of Machzir Grushasai, it's referring to the Machzir Grushasai herself. So once it says the word Tuma Ksiva Karayas, so the tzaras Machzir Grushasai is going to have a din of a tzaras erva. So there's no shayla, it's pashut that is not going to be even b'chalis. Kiti ba'ilach. So said Rav Yehuda, what was my shayla? The question was according to the Rabban. In yesterday's daf we saw that the Rabbanan hold that when it says Achrei Asher Hu Tama in the pasuk of Machzir Grushasai, it's actually not referring to a Machzir Grushasai, rather it's referring to a saita. So being that pasuk is referring to a saita, so now already we can clear a shayla. Now we can clear maybe the Torah never used the word Toma regarding Machzir Grushasai, and if the Torah never used the word Toma regarding Machzir Grushasai, so it's not muchrach anymore that the tzara of a Machzir Grushasai is going to have a din of a tzara zerva. Stating that, here was the shayla. Do you say that even though the Rabbanan said that it says Toma by Saita of ein mikra yoytze v'dev shutai, at the end of the day, what's Pashup Shad in the pasuk? The pasuk's talking about a Machzir Grushasai. It's not really talking about a Saita. Now the Rabbanan said a Joshua that it means Saita, but ein mikra yoytze v'dev shutai. So at the end of the day, we look at it as if it does say Tum in the parasha Machzir Grushasai. Thus, Machzir Grushasai is considered an erva yibum. If she's considered an erva yibum, her tzara is going to be a tzara erva yibum. I do more, maybe no. Even the yakar. At the end of the day, the Rabbanan said that when it says Tum in the Machzir Grushasai, it's actually not referring to Machzir Grushasai. It's referring to Saita, and we don't say Ein Mikra Yoytze V'Dev Shutai. So we say it doesn't say anywhere erva with regards to Machzir Grushasai, so there's no basis then to say that the tzara of a Machzir Grushasai is going to have a din of a tzara erva. So again, Rabbi Yehuda asked Rav Sheshes, what's the halacha regarding the tzara of a Machzir Grushasai? Does she have a din of a tzara erva, or does she not have a din of a tzara erva? What would be the tzad she should not have a din of a tzara erva? What's the erva? Machzir Grushasai is not an erva. What's the tzad that she should have a din of a Saras Erva, because the Torah refers to this grusha that the man is not allowed to remarry as being tameh, acharei asher hu tama, and tuma means arayas. Tuma ksiva karayas. What's the makar to that? Sarah soita asura. My time at tuma ksiva karayas. So that's the question. Do we look at the tzaras Machzir Grushasai like a tzaras erva because it says tuma, or do we not look at her as a tzaras erva? And the Gemara said that the shayla is only Aliba the Rabbanan, meaning Rav Yosef and Kippur, who said clearly that the word Achrei Asher Hu Tama, that it says a Machzir Grushasai is referring to the Machzir Grushasai. So Avada Gevist, it's going to be that we look at the Machzir Grushasai as an erva, and thus her tzara is going to be a tzara as erva. However, the shayla is, according to the Rabbanan, who darshan that pasuk of Achrei Asher Hu Tama regarding Saita, as the Gemara said in yesterday's daf, to teach me that there's a lav by a Saita, but the bottom line is it's referring to a Saita. So if it's referring to Saita, maybe the pasuk is not talking about Machzir Grushasai, and if it's not talking about Machzir Grushasai, so we have no makar, we have no source to say that it's tzaras Machzir Grushasai is going to be a tzaras erva. What's the other side? Even though it's true Chazal darshaning this pasuk with regards to tzaras Saita, but ain't mikra yoytze v'dev shuta. It's talking about tzaras Machzir Grushasai. Thus, we're going to look at her as a tzaras erva. Says the Ikadami. Some said that Rabbi Yehuda's shayla was just the opposite. I'll leave it to Rabbanan like Tiboy. Point to Rabbanan never had a shayla, keeping this akres akre. Because Rabbanan hold when it says achrei asher hu tama, it's referring to tzaras Saita. It's not referring to a Machzir Grushasai. Thus, there's no makar that a Machzir Grushasai is an erva yibum. And if that's the case, so there's going to be no halacha of tzaras Machzir Grushasai. What's the shayla? I'll leave the Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur, according to Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur, who holds that the word Achrei Ashru Tamah in the parsha Machzir B'Shasai is referring to the Machzir B'Shasai. What's the Shaila Mai? Do you say that even though Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur holds that when it says Tumah ben Machzir B'Shasai is referring to Machzir B'Shasai, it says the word he, and we learn from here Ki Tayeva ve'in tzarasa Tayeva. It says the word Ki Tayeva he, and maybe he is coming to be married to tzara. Maybe not. He Tayeva ve'in banei Tayeva. Maybe he is not coming to be married to tzara, but like in the first lishna, it's coming to be married. But as it relates to the tzara, maybe she is going to be considered a tayeva. Bottom line, the shayla is tzaras machzir b'shasei. What's the halacha? In the first list of the Gemara, the shayla is according to the Rabbanon, who hold that when it says tumah in the parsha machzir b'shasei, it's referring to a saita. What's the shayla then? Maybe a mikra yotzev v'depshuta. It means also the machzir b'shasei. So the tzaras machzir b'shasei is the tzaras erva. In the second list of the Gemara, the shayla is according to Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur, who holds that when it says tumah, it means machzir b'shasai. According to Rabbanan, there's no shayla because it's for sure referring to a saita, not the machzir b'shasai. What's the shayla then? Because it says ki tayeva he. Maybe he is memayet tzara. What's the other tzara? Maybe it's coming to memayet bana. So the Gemara says amalei. So this was the question that Rabbi Yehuda asked Rav Sheshes to l'shoynis, whether he meant it aliva the Rabbanan or whether he meant it aliva the Rabbi Yosef and Kippur. But the bottom line is Rav Sheshes told Rabbi Yehuda tenisur. It's a mishnah. It's the Mishnah later in the fourth parak. It's a Mishnah in Parak Achaylas. The Mishnah says as follows: There were two tsaras, meaning two Yevamos that fell a Yibum to a Yavam. One of the Yevamos was a kshera, and the other one was a psula. So the Mishnah says like this: if the Yavam decides he wants to do chalitza, chayletz a psula. He should do chalitza to the Yevama hapsula. If he decides he wants to do Yibum, miyabim l'kshera. He should do Yibum to the Ksheira. That's what the Mishnah says. So you have a Yavam, two Yevamos, they're both tsaras, they fell a Yibum together. Now the Yavam has a choice. He could do Yibum Chalitza. The question was, which one of the Yevamos should he do the Yibum to? Which one of the Yevamos should he do Chalitza to? So the Mishnah says what you should do. If you're doing Chalitza, do Chalitza to the Psula. If you're doing Yibum, then you should have to do the Yibum to the Ksheira. So the Gemara says, my Ksheira, my Psula. Let's clarify the definition of the terms ksheira and psula. Does ksheira mean that this is a woman that's ksheira la'alma, meaning everyone's allowed to marry her? And psula means that she's psula la'alma. She's just someone that other people are not allowed to marry. But he himself is allowed to marry. So it'll be an example of that. You have a woman that's psula la'alma, but it's ksheira to him. So for example, she was a grusha from a previous marriage. He's a Yisrael. However, being that she's a grusha, she would be also to all kohanim. Okay, but the Gemara says, at the end of the day, if he's not a kohen, so he's allowed to marry any one of these two Yevamis, my nafkala mina. So why are we telling him who to do Yibam to, who to do Chalitza to? The case doesn't even make sense. They're both Kshera. If Kshera is Kshera la'alma, and Psula is only Psula la'alma, but really Kshera to him. So at the end of the day, they're both kosher to him. If they're both kosher to him, technically he should be able to do Yibam to whoever he wants. Why are we telling him to do Chalitza to the woman that's Psula la'alma, if at the end of the day, even though she's Psula la'alma, she's Kshera le? If she's Kshera le, he should be able to do Yibam. Why should he have to do Chalitza? Elalav, you have to say Kshera means Kshera le, and Psula means Psula le. Kshera means one woman was kosher to him. He was able to marry her if he wanted to. And the other one was psula lei. What then must the case be? Machzir gushasai. It must be machzir gushasai. Now, how do you know it's machzir gushasai? There's no remez in this Mishnah to machzir gushasai. All we're saying is that the woman that's kshera is kshera to him. The one that's psula is psula to him. How do you know that the one that's psula to him is a machzir gushasai? So Rashi asks the kasha, and Rashi says, because if it's not machzir gushasai, then what's the chiddush of this Mishnah? The Mishnah is telling me that if there's a chayve lavin or a chayve lavin be'esen, some woman that's asking him to do yibum, he should do chalitza. We know that. It's a Mishnah on Daf Chaf, which is 25 dafim before that other Mishnah, and that's something that is clear. Everyone knows when you learn Yevamos that you can't do Yibum with a Chayvi Lavin, you can't do Yibum with a Chayvi Lavin V'Esen. So why would the Mishnah have to say that if one of the women is a Psula, you're supposed to do Chalitza? Of course you're supposed to do Chalitza. So there must be some Chiddush going on over here. There must be Epis HaChiddush. You know what the Chiddush is? This woman that was Psula was a Chayvi Lavin. You know what the Chayvi Lavin was? She was a Machzir Gushasai. Okay, why is that a Chiddush? It's a Chiddush that you have to do Chalitza with the Psula if she's a Machzir Gushasai. No, that's not the Chiddush. You know what the Chiddush is? The Chiddush is that if you want to do Yibum With the other Yevama, you can do. And what's the Chiddush? Tzaras Machzir Grushasa is Muteres. The Knani, then Hoya Miyabim L'Ksheira. You see, if you want to do even with the Ksheira, you could. What's the Kasha? The Ksheira is the Tzara of the Psula. They both fell together. If the Psula is a Machzir Grushasa, that means the Ksheira is a Tzaras Machzir Grushasa. And still you're telling me that if he wants to do Yibum with the Tzara, he can do Yibum with the Tzara. So L'chura says the Gemara that isn't this a Mefurish Araya? So that was what Rav Sheshes told Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda had a ganze Shaila, Tzaras Machzir. What's the halacha? In the first Mishnah, Shiloh was according to the Rabbanon. In the second Mishnah, the Shiloh was according to Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur. But at the end of the day, his Shiloh was what's the halacha? So the Gemara says, Rav Sheshes told Rabbi Yehuda, it's enough in the Mishnah. It's a Mishnah later. The Mishnah says that if two Yevamas follow Yibam, one's a Ksheira, one's a Psula, you should do Yibam with the Ksheira, and you should do Chalitza with the Psula. If that's the direction that you want to go, meaning if you're doing Yibam, it has to be with the Ksheira. If you're doing Chalitza, you should do Chalitza with the Psula. What's the Kasha? The Kasha is that what's really the Chiddush? The Chiddush is that you can't do Yibum with the Psula? Of course not. She's a Psula. That's a Chayvi Labin. It's a Chayvi Labin Essen. We know the halacha. The Chiddush is you could do Yibum with the Ksheira. What's the problem? Saras Chayvi Labin, Saras Chayvi Labin Essen is not a problem. There has to be a Chiddush. You know what the Chiddush must be? The Psula was a Machzir Grushasai, which would make the Tzara Tzaras Machzir Grushasai, and thus is the Chiddush. That Tzaras Machzir Grushasai is Misyabemis. That's what Rav Sheshes told Rav Yehuda. Gemara says, "Lie, it's not muchach. It's a nice shtickle Torah, but it's not muchach. Loyal, I'll tell you Ksheira la'alma. And Psula la'alma. Loyal, I'll tell you there were two Yevamis. The one that was Ksheira to everybody. Yeah, if he wanted to marry her, he can marry her. The one that was Psula was really Ksheira to him. However, she was Psula la'alma. She was Psula to other people. Like the case we said before. She was a Grusha, he's a Yisrael, so that she's Ksheira to him, but there are Kohanim in the world that she's Psula to. And the Mishnah saying that if you do Chalitza to the Psula, don't do Chalitza to the Ksheira. Like, why are we micromanaging what he does? They're both ksheira to him. He should be able to do whatever he wants. The Teretz is Mishum Rav Yosef. It's based on something Rav Yosef said. Rav Yosef said, Kan Shana Rebbe. It was right here in this Mishnah that Rebbe taught us the following idea. And that is, if somebody has water in a pit, he doesn't need it, but other people need it, then you shouldn't pour it away. Here too, if you're going to do chalitza, you should do chalitza dafka to the psula. You should not do chalitza to the ksheira. And the reason is because a chalutza is asur l'koyin. Just like a kohen is not allowed to marry a grusha, a kohen is also not allowed to marry a chalutza. Now, he's not allowed to marry a grusha mid'iraisa. He's only not allowed to marry a chalutza mid'rabbanan. But the bottom line is any chalitza becomes asur to a kohen. So if this person's planning on doing chalitza, and it doesn't really matter to him which one of the Yevamos he does chalitza to, all he has to do is chalitza to one of the Yevamos, and he fulfills his mitzvah, and all the zika goes away. So really, it doesn't matter to him. So he should dafka go ahead and do chalitza to the psula. You know why? Because if you're going to do chalitza to the ksheira, you're going to create new isser for the kohen. So if there's a kohen now that needs to get married, there's going to be one less woman that he's going to be able to marry, because this chalitza is now going to be also to a kohen. If he does it to the grusha, who's the psula, being that she's anyways also to kohanim, so he's not creating any new isurim to kahuna. So it's for that reason, kan shana Rebbe la yishlech adam eibayre ba'acherim tzrichim lehem. But as relates to our sugya, we're discussing the halacha of the tzaras machzir grushasa. That mission is not talking about machzir grushasa. Again, there was no mention, there was no reference, there was no remez to machzir grushasa. We're just trying to figure out what the chiddush of the mission is. So we said maybe we'll back into a chiddush. If we say the Mishnah means machzir grushasa, so maybe we can come up with a pshat. But the teretz is the Mishnah does not mean machzir grushasa. What does it mean? It means Rebbe's halacha. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah. Tashma the Gemara says maybe we can bring another right. The halacha of tzaras machzir grushasa. That is a machzir grushasa. Mishnah says if someone's machzir grushasa, Mishnah says again somebody was married, divorced his wife, she got married to somebody else, and now he remarried her. He wasn't allowed to, but if he marries her, she's married. So now he married her, and then he dies, leaves over no children. And there was another wife as well. So the halacha is hivit tzarasa chayletznes. She and the tzara both need chalitza. You never do chalitza to two tzaras. You never do yibum to two tzaras. It's always going to be to one or the other. So what does it mean? Hivit tzarasa chayletznes. The Gemara says either she or the tzara is going to need chalitza. But what do you see from here? You see clearly that tzaras machzir grushasa needs chalitza. So the Gemara, no. This brisa clearly is mishubash, right? There's issues with this brisa. Because if you read the brisa, the way it's written, it says, and that can't be the case. So Elamai, we're forced to be metaritz the brisa. What did we say? No, once you be metaritz the brisa, you could be metaritz a little bit more. She gets chalitza, and sarasa as relates to the tzara, says either chalitza, imas yabemes, or yibum. Bottom line is the Gemara had two attempts to try to prove this shiloh. What's the halacha regarding tzaras machzir u'shasoi? And the Gemara failed on both attempts. And again, just to make this point again, the Gemara is only discussing the tzara of the machzir u'shasoi. The Gemara never discussed what's the halacha of the machzir u'shasoi herself. And the truth is, her halachic status in yibum is not so pashut. There's a Tosfos right here on the Amud that Tosfos gets into it, but again, we just do what we do. Talk to Gemara weiter, and really, this next Gemara is going to be in many ways a little bit of a repeat of the first Gemara that we learned. So we're going to go through it a little bit quicker because the Gemara is really going to chazer, as we'll see, a lot of what we just said. The topic is the same. It's the halacha b'tzaras machzir u'shasei. Amar Rab Chia bar Rabba said, Rabbi Yochanan had the following question: machzir u'shasei mishin nisei sarasa mao. If somebody was married, divorced his wife, she got married to somebody else, he remarried her. Then he died, left over no children, and there was another wife, so that the machzir u'shasei and the tzara both fall evil. What's the halacha regarding the tzara machzir u'shasei? Amalei. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Ami told Rabbi Yochanan, he kufa. Oh, so finally, he asked her, why are you only asking the shayla regarding the tzaras machzir u'shasei? So in this list of the Gemara already says that Rabbi Ami told Rabbi Yochanan that why don't you ask regarding the tzara herself? So Rabbi Yochanan said, he kufa by coming by Eli. No, as it relates to the machzir u'shasei itself, I have no shayla. The Amrina, because it's pashut to me what the halach is, based on a kal v'chaymer. What's the kal v'chaymer? The mutala nesra ba'asra like kolshkein. Meaning, I have no havamina that the yavam will not be able to do yibum on the machzir u'shasei herself. And the reason is because being that the machzir u'shasei is aser to her husband, certainly she'll be aser to the yavam. And the reason it's certainly the kal v'chaymer is because a woman is usually mutter to her husband. She's usually aser to her husband's brother. She's an eshazach. So madach, in this case, she's aser to her husband because she's a chai bilad and she's a machzir u'shasei. So kal v'chaymer, she should be aser to her husband's brother. So therefore, that was never my shayla. The shayla is tzarasa. What's the halacha regarding the tzarasa? What's the halacha? Do we say that the svara of the kal v'chaymer of the mutala nesra ba'asala like kolshkein is strong enough to knock out the tzara as well? Or maybe it's not strong enough to knock out the tzara. The Gemara says, Nachman bar Yitzchak had a slightly different version of the shayla. He said, Rab Chia bar Rabba said, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan declared the shayla. Machzir u'shasei mishinis. Someone's machzir u'shasei. What's the halacha? Rabbi Ami said, why do you ask? Why not ask regarding the tzara? Meaning, according to Rab Nachman bar Yitzchak's Lishna, Rabbi Yochanan Shaila was regarding the machzir u'shasei herself, not regarding the tzara. And Rav Ami's response was that why are you only asking regarding the machzir u'shasei? You should ask regarding the tzara. So he told him back, as it relates to the tzara, like coming by, because I know the only svar in the world to say that the tzara of the machzir u'shasei would be aser is based on the fact that the machzir u'shasei herself is aser. Why is the machzir u'shasei herself aser based on a kal v'chaymer? And there's no way the kal v'chaymer is strong enough to aser a tzara. My shayla is, what about the machzir u'shasei herself? What's the halacha? Do we say the kal v'chaymer is a svara to knock out the mitzvah of yibum? But maybe the kal v'chaymer itself is not a strong enough svara to knock out the mitzvah of yibum. Either way, this is a whole different nusach of the shayla of machzir u'shasei. The question was asked by Rabbi Yochanan, and as we're about to see, the terutzim, the attempts that the Gemara is going to make to try to resolve this question in this nusach is identical to what the Gemara did in the first nusach. So he told him back to the so it's a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, and again, we'll go through this quickly. If there were two Yevamos that fell yibum, one was ksheir, one was psula. If the person decides he wants to do chalitza, it's psula. He should do chalitza to the psula. If he wants to do yibum with ksheir, he should do yibum to the ksheir. So the Gemara says, my ksheir, my psula. What does ksheir mean, and what does psula mean? Ilay ksheir, la'alma, psula, la'alma. Does ksheir mean she's kosher to everybody, and psula means puzzle to everybody, but kosher to this yavam. If she's allowed to marry this Yavam, so he should be able to do Yibum. Why does he care that she's Psula Alma? If he wants to be Miyaber, he should be able to be Miyaber. Elav, it's Pashik, Ksher, Psula. It's talking about when there were two Yavamas. One he's allowed to do Yibum to, the other one is not allowed to do Yibum to. Now, if that's the case, what's the Chiddush? We know that already. We know Chayvi Lav and Chayvi Lav and S and let's explain this Yavamas. So, my new, what must the case be? Machzik Rishasai. It must be she's a Machzik Rishasai. And that would be a Chiddush. What would be the Chiddush? Not that the Machzik Rishasai is Chaylat, but that the Kshera is Misyabenes, that Soros Machzir Rishasa is mutter. Victorim Haymayabim, Yabalik Shera. You see, if you want to do even, you can do even to the Kshera. It says like Kshera Lam, Psulam. I'll tell you, Kshera means Kshera to everybody, and Psulam means only apostle to everybody else, but really kosher to him. So if she's mutter to him, so what's the problem? Why can't he do Yibam if he wants? Shouldn't Rabbi Yosef? It's because Rabbi Yosef said, Can't shun the Rebbe. It was in this mission that Rebbe taught us this side, and that is a person shouldn't pour away water if he needs it. Don't do chalitza to the kshera if you could do chalitza to the psula, because if you do chalitza to the kshera, you're just going to create a woman that's asa to marry a kohen. If you do chalitza to the psula, being that the psula is anyways asa to the kohen, so you're not really adding on any yisser. So it's for that reason, that's what the Mishnah is telling you to do. It has nothing to do with machzir gushasa. Tashma, another way. Machzir gushasa, Mishnah says, if someone's machzir gushasa, he v'tzarasa chaylatzes. She and the tzara should both get chalitza. He v'tzarasa so the naitach. What? She and the tzara both get chalitza doesn't make sense. You never do chalitza to two. Either her or the tzara. So what do you see? You see tzaras machzir gushasa is chaylatzes because you have to do chalitza. So it's clear. This is the psak. You want to know what the halach is of tzaras machzir gushasa? You see, it's chaylatzes. So the Gemara says, no, you're bringing me a raya from a brisa that clearly had issues. Once you're already being metaritz the brisa, you might as well be metaritz a little bit more, meaning maybe the brisa means she herself, the machzir gushasa, you have to do chalitza. And so Ras, as relates to the tzara, if you want to do chalitza, you can do chalitza, but if you want to do yibum, you can do yibum as well. And this concludes, not an easy Gemara, Pashit Pshat Daf Yomi. This is not an easy Gemara. Really requires us to work through the Tosfos that we don't have the time to do. The income but this is the beginning and the end of the sugya of Tzoros Machzir Gushasa. So we turn our attention now to the second sugya in the daf, and that is the sugya of Tzoras Vamenes. So just to clarify what exactly miyun is. So the halacha is that a father has the ability to be mekadesh his daughter while she's a ketana. It's learned out from a pasuk in the Torah as biti nosati leish hazeh, and we learn from there that if a father wants, he can accept kedushin from a man on behalf of his daughter, and the halacha is his daughter is going to be mekudeshes midairaisa, which is a chiddush on many levels. The level that we need is that it's possible for a ketana to be married. She doesn't have the das to get married on her own, but her father could accept kedushin on her behalf, and at the end of the day, this ketana will be a married woman. Not only will she be married, midairaisa, so she has a din of an eshes ish midairaisa. If someone's mezana with her, it's chayv misas best. If her husband dies, she falls liyibum. If the husband's a kohen, she's a bas yisrael, she's allowed to eat truma. Her husband would yarshin her. All the dinim of marriage, midairaisa, would apply to this girl, even though she's a ktan. The Rabbanan went, and the Rabbanan added to this halacha. The Rabbanan said that even though midairaisa, only a father has the right to be mekadesh his daughter, however, we're going to extend that, albeit on a rabbinic level, and that is that in the event that this girl's a yesayma, she doesn't have her father, her brother, or one of her other relatives have the right to be mekadesh her as well. The reason they would have done it is because once upon a time, a girl, and certainly a Yisayim, was very vulnerable. So simply she should be married, that she should be protected. So the Rabbanan said that one of her kroivim has the ability to go and accept Kedushin on her behalf. However, it's only midrabanan, and as a result, she's only going to be mikudeshes midrabanan. Now, being that she's mikudeshes midrabanan, as you can imagine, there are many kulas. The most notable kula is that if this girl decides one day that she's not interested in being married anymore, this is something she has the ability to do. She can decide, I'm not interested. It's known as miyun, and she can walk away from the marriage. Why is this a chiddush? Because ordinarily, the woman doesn't have such a say in terms of terminating a marriage. It's the man's right to divorce his wife. But if she decides that she's not interested in being married, she can't divorce her husband. She can't just leave the marriage. She's an HSH. Miyun is a chiddush it's a chiddush by Kiddushin the Rabbanon. It's because the Rabbanon were the ones that created the Kiddushin, they had the right to invoke this incredible kula, which is the concept of miyun. Now, one of the chidushim of miyun is that miyun is oiker the Kiddushin lemafreya. Meaning, if a husband and wife are married, they're married for many years, and then they part ways, they get divorced. So the gerushin terminates the marriage, mikanu lahaba. All the years that they were married, they were married. It's just moving forward, they're no longer going to be married. The kasav lasif, Christos, v'nasam v'yada, there's a concept in the Torah of being able to terminate a marriage. When a girl does miyun, in the event that she does miyun, the marriage is terminated, not mikanu lahaba, lemafreya. So you do it, the Reb Chaim in Sefer said that it's not just lemafreya, but it's, quote, mikanu lahaba lemafreya. Whatever that means. But the point is that miyun is oiker the kiddushin lemafreya. And miyun says that it's as if this couple was not, what do you mean? They were married for 5 years. Never happened. What about all the bilos knows? What about all the different things that happen? We have to arrange it or we have to work it out. But the bottom line is miyun is oiker the kiddushin lemafreya. The chiddush that we're going to see in our sugya is that in the event that there was a ketana who's married midrabban, and her husband dies, leaves over no children, she now falls liyibon. If she wants, she could be memayin in the yavam, and she can tell the yavam that, you know what, I didn't realize that this is the way this marriage was going to play out. I'm not interested in being a yavama right now. I'm not interested in being a shemeres yavam. Wait for you to figure out whether you want to do yivam and chalitza. And guess what? I have a card that I'm able to use, and that is I'm being memayin. And I'm going to be mamayin in the original marriage, which created the zika, which created the nafila liyiba, which put me into the situation in the first place. The halacha she could do that. It's a little bit of a chiddush, because you would think you could be mamayin in a marriage as long as the marriage still exists. At this point, the marriage is already up to a new phase. But being that the whole zika is machmas, the original marriage, and she had the right to be mamayin in the original marriage, so right now, today, she could still be memayin in that original marriage. With that, hakdama. Amar Rav Lili bar Mamlo, Amar Marukva, Amar Shmuel, Rav Lili bar Mamlo said in the name of Marukva said in the name of Shmuel, Saras Mamenes Asur. In the event that you have Reuven, who was married to 2 wives. One of his wives was a ketana that was married only midrabanan, a ketana that had the right to do miyun. His other wife was a gedayla, Kedas Moshe v'Yisrael midayraisa. He died, he left over no children, left over a brother. So the brother now has a mitzvah to do yibum. There are 2 Yevamos. One is a ketana, and the other one is a gedayla. In the event that the ketana does miyun, the halacha is her tsara, that's the other Yevama, is going to be asura. She's not going to be able to do yibum. So in the event that the ketana does miyun, which is something that she has a right to do, so the halacha is her tzara is going to be asur. So the Gemara says like this, and again, this is a not easy Gemara. It's not so long, not so easy, but we're going to do what we do. So the Gemara says when we say that the tzara is asura, who is she asur to? Doesn't mean that she's asur to the brothers. Meaning she was mema'in to one of the yavam. That's what happened. When she does yibum, she's not being ma'in to her husband. Her husband's not alive anymore. So in theory, what she's doing is she's being ma'in to one of the yavam. So when we say now that the tzara is asur, it doesn't mean that she's asur to the other brothers. So the Gemara says it can't be, because hashta hi gufa sharia, she herself is going to be mutter to any one of the other brothers, meaning she's asur to the brother that she did miyun to, but she's mutter to the other brothers. So if she's mutter to the other brothers, then l'chura, the tzara has to be mutter to the other brothers as well. Now, how do you know she's mutter to the other brothers? The Amar Shmuel said, "Miyana bazeh." In the event that she's memayin to one of the brothers, mutaris bazeh, the halach is she's mutter to the other brothers. So certainly the tzara is going to be mutter to the other brothers. Maybe what it means is that when we're saying that the tzara is asur, it means that she's going to be asur to the yavam. The yavam that the meal was done to, the tzara is going to be asur to as well. Says the Gemara, but I don't understand that either. Because why is the mamenes mutter to the brothers? because even though there was miyun that was done, but the miyun wasn't done directly to those brothers. The miyun was done to the yavam that the miyun was done to. So if that's the case, then you should say that the tzara should be mutter even to the yavam that the mamenes did miyun to, because at the end of the day, the tzara herself didn't do a maisa. Meaning, it sounds like the only time there's a problem is if there was a maisa that was done. So the maisa miyun was done between the mamenes, that one yavama, and the yavam that she did the miyun to. She's mutter to the other yavam, and why? Because she never did any maisa to them. She was never mamai to them. So the tzara should be mutter to this yavam too, because the tzara also never did a maisa. So what's the halacha that tzara is mamenes asura? So the Gemara says, you want to know why she's asur gzerim mishum tzara bite mamenes. The reason is because we're afraid what would be in the event that the mamenes was also the daughter of Shimon. So now we have a case where, again, Ruvain was married to two wives. One was a Ketana, which she was married to the Rabbanon. The other one was a Gedolah. The Ketana was also Shimon's daughter. So Ruvain's married to Shimon's daughter, who happens to be a Ketana, and she's married midrabanan. He also has another wife. Now, what's the problem with this? Is a very, very obvious problem, which we're not going to discuss now. How's that even possible? The only way it's possible for a girl to be married midrabanan is in the event that she's a Yisayma. So if her father's alive, she just fell a yibum to her father, so that means by definition she's not a Yisayma. The short answer is she's a Yisayma b'chayi aviyah. There's a concept of a Yisayma b'chayi aviyah, but that's just another layer here that we have no time to go into. But the bottom line is, says the Gemara, so what would be in that case? In that case, says the Gemara, it's pashut that the tzara would be also. A tzaras Bitoy Mamenes would be also. You know why? Because she's a tzaras erfa. So being that tzaras Bitoy Mamenes is also, so for that reason, Lili Bar Mabel said the name of said the name of Shmuel that Tzaras Mamenes is going to be also as well. You want to know why Tzaras Mamenes is also? It's a Gzeira Atu Tzaras Bite Mamenes. Faith the Gemara of Tzaras Bite Mamenes me asira. Why is Tzaras Bite Mamenes also? I don't understand. In fact, it's a Mishnah that it's not us. But we went in our Mishnah, the Mishnah on that page, the Kulon, regarding all the Arayos, right? Our Mishnah was talking about the classic case of a Tzaras Erva, where Reuben and Shimon are brothers. Reuben has two wives. One of them is Shimon's Erva, and the other one is another one. And what did the Mishnah say? That in Mesu, in the event that the Erva died before Reuven died, or did Mion. So what's the halacha? Tzaras say and mutaris. That tzaras are going to be more. So the Gemara says the Mion of a when the Mishnah said that if the Erva did Mion, the halacha is the tzaras mutar. When exactly did this Mion happen? Meaning, who was she memayin to? Either the Mion of a isn't talking about when she did Mion to the husband. Hainu grusha. Isn't that crucial? Meaning the Mishnah said, but Kula and all these women in the event that the Erva died, or there was Miyun, or there was Gerishin, or they were found to be an eyewitness, the halach is the tzara is going to be mutter. Now, if Miyun means that she was Memayin while Reuven was still alive, then essentially that's the same as Gerishin. Elul Abiyam. Probably it's talking about that she was Memayin to who? She was Memayin to the Yavam. And what do you see? That in the event that Reuven's married to a Ketana that could do Miyun, who's an Erva, and another wife, and then she does Miyun to the Yavam, which means Reuven dies, and then afterwards she does Yibum, the halacha is her tzaras mutter. So you see, tzaras bitoy mamenes is mutter. So you're telling me tzaras mamenes is asur gzeira atu tzaras bitoy mamenes. You see that even tzaras bitoy mamenes herself is mutter. So the Gemara says, La'olam b'ba'al. La'olam tzaras bitoy mamenes is us. And that's why tzaras mamenes is us. Gzeira atu tzaras bitoy mamenes is us. What's the kasha? The Mishnah says not that way. Because what did the Mishnah say? That in the event that the Erva did Mion, the halacha is the tzaras is going to be mutter. Says the Gemara, no. When the Mishnah says that the Erva did Miyun, the tzara is going to be mutter, is la'olam abal. It's talking about when she did Miyun while the husband was still alive. Meaning, when Reuven died and the Yevamos fell to Yibum, she wasn't a tzara serva at that point, and that's why she's going to be mutter. What's the kasha? Doesn't the Mishnah already say gerishin? So if the Mishnah says that if he divorced her while he was alive and then dies, the tzara is not called the tzara serva. So what's the difference between if he divorced her, if he was mamayin? Why would I need the Mishnah to tell me both? So the Gemara says, "V'trei gavni gerishin." The Mishnah wanted to say two different cases of gerishin. The point is, enochanami. There's no chiddush once you know Gerishin, but at the same time, it's two different cases. I mean, the Mishnah on that Amud Beis is telling me that even though there's a halach of tzaras erva, but that's only if she's a tzaras erva at the time that she falls the yibum. However, if she wasn't a tzaras erva by the time that she fell the yibum, because the original marriage was terminated, either because the erva died, or because of Gerishin, or because of Mion, or Shiddim Tailinus, like the Mishnah said. It doesn't matter what the reason is. At the end of the day, as long as at the time of the death of Reuven, she's not a tzaras erva, that's enough to say that you're not going to have the halacha of tzaras erva. So essentially, what we're saying is that the reason a tzaras mamenes is aser is because of a gzeira atu tzoras bitem amen. Says the Gemara, Maishna kimi anababal dokrino linesuin ki mi anabiyavam nami nesuin kamani kakro. Says the Gemara, I don't understand this whole halacha. I don't understand why it's tzoras mamenes is aser. I don't even understand why it's tzoras bitem mamenes is aser. L'chayra, this whole halacha is a pella. Why? Because what does miyun do? Miyun is oiker kedusha l'mafreya. If miyun is oiker kedusha l'mafreya, so it comes out that if this kitana is memayed in the yavam, assuming the miyun works, which it certainly sounds like it does from our sugya, what it's going to do is it's going to say she was never married. So if she was never married, the tzara was never a tzara. It doesn't matter if she's a tzara's bitay, if she's a regular tzara's mamenes. This whole halacha has no pshat. If she was memayed to the husband, the Mishnah says, then you have nothing to worry about. So memanav shach, except she's memayed to the oven, it's the same thing. It's oiked and asuin in the same way. So the Gemara says, Mishum, the reason is Mishum the Tani Rami by Yecheskel. Rami by Yecheskel said, Mia nabebal muteres la'aviv. In the event that you have a ketana and she was memayed in her husband, so she was married midrabanan, and then she did miyan to her husband. So the halach is muteres la'aviv. She's allowed to marry her husband's father. Now, ordinarily, a woman's not allowed to marry her husband's father. It's the father's daughter-in-law, it's kalasa, it's one of the arayas. But if she didn't miyun, she's allowed to. And the reason is because miyun is oiker l'mafreya, being that it's oiker l'mafreya, therefore it's going to be okay. Stating that, b'yavam asur la'aviv. But if she's memaying to the yavam, meaning a woman was married to the Rabbanan, and then he died, she fell a yibum, she was memaying to the yavam, then the halach is she's not allowed to marry the father. Alma, you know what you see from here? Mishas nefila niras kekalasa. That once she falls the yibum, she looks like a daughter-in-law, and with the Rabbanan there's a problem. So to him, Mishas nefila niras ketzaras bitay. With the Rabbanan, she comes across looking like a tzaras bitay, and it's for that reason this is going to be an issue. So this issue is certainly not an issue with the Raisa. The whole parsha of Miyun is a parsha of the Rabbanan. And the only reason there's even a sugya of tzaras mamenes and tzaras bitay mamenes, it's because of niras. Once a woman falls liyibam, she looks like she's married. You want to do Miyun to your husband, I hear. You're doing Miyun to the Yavam, the marriage was etched in stone once she fell the Yibum, and it's for that reason the Miyun is not such a plush to Miyun. That's why there's a sugya of tzaras mamenes. That's why there's a sugya of tzaras bitay mamenes. Now we're going to see the sugya of tzaras islandess. Talk to Mishnah. So what's an talk to Gemara? So what's an islandess? An islandess is a woman that can't have children. So because of something physical, this islandess is not able to have any children. Now the truth is the sugya of islandess comes up a lot in Seder Nashim, comes up in Yevamos because of this epic next Gemara we're about to learn, the sugya of tzaras islandess, but it also comes up in the Saktis Ksubis and in some of the more basic foundational sugyas in Seder Nashim, and that is because the halach is if a man gets married to a woman and then he discovers later that she's an islandess, he didn't know she was an islandess at the time he married her. But later on, he discovered she was an islandess. The halach is if he wants, he can say that had I known she was an islandess, I would have never married her. He can kind of mekach tois, and the halach is he doesn't need a get. He's allowed to walk away from the marriage. So that's where islandess usually comes up, and this is something that is going to play itself out in the course of these next few lines of Gemara that we're about to learn. So the Gemara. Amar Rav Asi said, "Tzaras islandess asu." Reuven and Shimon are brothers. Reuven's married, he has two wives. One of them is an islandess, and the other one is not an islandess. And then Reuven dies. Leaves over no children. The halacha is that the brother that's alive has no mitzvah to be miyabim the islandess. Not only does he have no mitzvah to be miyabim the islandess, he also has no mitzvah to be miyabim the tzaras islandess. That's Rav Asi's halacha. Tzaras islandess asura. Shenemar, because it says v'hoya habechora shetele, and we learn from there pratla islandess she'enu yoledes. And really, the halacha that islandess is patur from yibum is such a pashta halacha. Because what's the whole idea of yibum? The idea of yibum is marry the yevama, have children through the yevama, and like the Ramban says in Parshas Vayeshev, that's through the Soid of Gilgulim, right? That's somehow going to be a hemshech, that's going to perpetuate the legacy and the memory of the Achames. So much so that the Ramban says that a brother that decides not to do Yibum, because that's this idea, there's an Indian for him to go ahead and for him to do Yibum. So says Rav Asi, that just like there's no Yibum by an islandess, and by the way, that's Pash, you don't need Rav Asi for that. Just like there's no Yibum by an islandess, so too the halach is that the tzara of an islandess is going to be Asur as well. So Tsaris island is Asura. What's the Makar? It says Bahoya Bachara Sheteled, and from Bahoya Bachara Sheteled, we learn that at Tsaris island is Asur. Now, Rashi says that what's pattering the Tzara? Meaning Tsaris island is Asura, something has to be pattering the Tzara. Right? The only time you find this concept of a Tzara not being able to do Yibum is a Tsaris Erva. That's learned out from Litzra or Rebbe's Drasha, but usually you need an erva to knock out the tzara. Where's the erva over here? An islandess is not an erva, right? And just to make this clear, we learned the sugya of tzara saita. We learned the sugya of tzara's machzir rushasai. Over there was an erva. Tumaksiv bakarayas, both by soita and by machzir rushasai. So we have an erva. Where's the erva over here? So Rashi asks the question. Rashi says the erva is pasha because being that there's no yibum and chalitza on the islandess, so it comes that the islandess herself never became mutter liyibum. If the islandess herself never became mutter liyibum, so she retains her iser eshesach. Therefore, it comes out the tzara of the islandess is a tzaras eshesach. Tzaras eshesach is potter from yibum and chalitza. But either way, that's Rav Asi's Allah. So the Gemara must have Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes, that's the kasha. Shloisha achim asun shloish nashim nachritz. There were three brothers that were married to three women that were nachriyos. Now, nachriyos very often means non-Jews. That's not what it means over here. Nachriyos just means they're not sisters, so it's not as complicated. But either way, there were three brothers that are married to three women that are nachriyos. There's no relation between them. Umeis echad and one of the brothers died. Okay, so now his wife falls liyibum to the two brothers. And then one of the brothers went and he did maimer. So what's maimer? So we spoke about maimer in the introduction to the Masechta. Maimer is where a brother was mikadesh the Yevama in the traditional ha'isha nikne sense, either through kesef or through shtar. Right? Yibum has to be dafka through bia. So maimer would be where he did it not through bia, but rather he did it through kesef or he did it through a shtar. Now, the halach is that maimer midday rice is nothing, like we discussed at length in the introduction to the Masechta, because midday rice has to be bia, yavama yavayala, and there's no other way to go ahead and create the ishus. Stating that the Rabbanan said that in the event that a brother does maimer, he acts as if it's a regular situation. So the halach is midday Rabbanan, it's going to be something. So basically, what happened is there were three brothers. One of the brothers died, and then one of the brothers that were alive did maimer. And then he died, umes. So the brother that did maimer died. So essentially, what's happening is that there are now two Yevamos that are falling the Yibum to this one Yavam. This one surviving brother, two of his brothers just died. Their Yevamos respectively just fell a Yibum. One of the Yevamos fell twice the Yibum. She fell a Yibum because she was the almana of the first brother that died. But then the second brother had done maimer. And when he died, she now fell the yibum for a second time. So really what you have is two Yevamas that are falling the yibum. One is falling only once, and the other one is already falling some tzveitin mal. But to be clear, of the two nefilas of the first Yevama, one is a deiraisa they're going to fila, and the other one's only a derabbanan they're going to fila. Mitzad, the first brother that died, it's the deiraisa they're going to fila, and mitzad, the second brother that died, it's only a derabbanan they're going to fila. So what's the halacha? The halacha is that you do chalitza, you don't do yibum. He's not allowed to do yibum to any one of these Yevamas. The reason is Shenema, the pasuk says, "Umeis echad mehem Yevama yavay aleh," and we learn from here, "Misha aleh zikas yavam echad, v'loy zikas shnei Yevam." That the only time you can do yibum is if a woman is fully machmas zika echad. But if a woman's fully machmas zika shnei Yevam, and if there's two Yevam that died that are creating zika, so then the halacha is there's no nefila liyibum. So the only time there's a nefila liyibum is if the woman's fully liyibum machmas one brother, but machmas two brothers not. And again, one of these Yevam is falling liyibam machmas two brothers, and the reason is because she's falling liyibam machmas the fact that the first brother died, and then she's falling liyibam again machmas the maimer of the second brother. Now, to be clear, this case of mishaleh zikas yavam echad lo zikas shnei yavamim is obviously a derabbanan d'gedin, because midday raisa it's really not possible to fall machmas two zikas pashtus. Why? Because once one brother does yibum, that zika is gone. So now that he dies, if she falls the yibum for a second time, she's not falling machmas zika shnei yavamim. She's only falling machmas the zika of the second brother. The reason we have a case here where there's two zikas is because you have the original zika, and then the brother that married her through Maimer. Maimer is a marriage midrabanan, but not midiraisa. So midiraisa, you still have the original zika because Maimer is not a real marriage. But at the same time, because Maimer is a marriage midrabanan, so you have a zika machmas, the second marriage. But the bottom line is that you can't do yibum because there's a din. Mishalah zika yavam echad v'lo zika shnei yavam. And the halach is not only can't you do yibum with the one that's falling to tzveitin mal, but you can't do yibum with her yavama either. You can't do yibum with either one of them. That this is an example of the tzara of an ishes ach, where the halach is she's considered a tzaras erva, and the reason she's a tzaras erva is because Isen Afilu Garama. The erva of Eshes Ach, which ordinarily would be mutter in an Afilu Liyibum, in this case is not becoming mutter in the Afilu Liyibum, which is something you don't find anywhere. This is the only example of such a situation. Again, it's not an easy case. What happened is you have two Yevamos that are falling Liyibum. One is falling Liyibum since Sveitin Mal. The other one is falling Yibum. It's a marriage to Mal. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven died, left over a Yevama. Shimon did Maimer. Then Shimon died. Left over now his own wife, plus Reuven's wife to whom he had done Maimer. Levi is the Yavam. The question is, what does he do? He can't do Yibum with Reuven's wife. The reason is because Reuven's wife has two zikas. She has the zika of the original nefila, the original death of Reuven. Plus, she also has the zika of Shimon's death. And the reason is one Shimon did Maimer, so that now created a situation where there's a marriage midrabanan. As a result, there's two zikas. She can't do yibum with Eshes Reuven. She can't do yibum with Eshes Shimon either. Why not? Eshes Shimon doesn't have zika shnei yavamim. The teretz she says atzoras erf, which the Gemara says is a chiddush of a tzaras erva. Because usually tzaras erva is the pshat that she was an erva, she's an achisisha, whatever the erva is, and that's creating the problems. Over here, the tzaras erva is the fact that she's a tzaras eshasach, which usually is not a problem, because eshasach is usually an erva that's mutter. Over here, the eshasach is not mutter, and the reason the eshasach is not mutter is because the eshasach has zika shnei yavalim. Being that the Eshesach is not mutter, now we see an Arab of Eshesach, and as a result, the Tzara is going to be a Tzaras Arab, which the Gemara says the only time you ever find such a thing. You never have a situation where you have a Tzaras Eshesach she'isn't a filu garam lo. So the Gemara says, 1 second, is that true? I have a case. Tzaras Islandus is a case. Because Tzaras Islandus is also a Tzaras Erva, that's what Ravasi said. Tzaras Islandus Asura. And what kind of Tzaras Erva is she? She's a Tzaras Eshesach. So if you see she's a Tzaras Erva, because of Tzaras Eshesach, that's also l'chayra Eshesach. That's isin afilu garama. So again, let's see it inside. It says the Gemara that you don't find anywhere kigoin zois. This is the only type of Tzaras erva which is isin afilu garama. So the Gemara says zuhi lemutei ma'it. Sounds like it's come to mind something. There's another case that you would have thought maybe there should be a p'tur tzaras erva where there's not a tzaras erva. What is that case? My love, lemute tzaras island is the shai is probably coming to my tzaras island. Tzaras island sounds like a very similar case, and we're saying this is the only time that you have Allah of tzaras Eishnes ach that's isin afilu garam law. So l'chura, isn't this a raya? Then that tzaras island is really muteris. The Gemara says what? Lemute tzaras island is the asira, meaning this is in fact not like tzaras island is. But not that Tzaras Islandus is muteris. Tzaras Islandus is really asur. Umay zuhi. So what then do we mean? Zuhi, this is the one case that's asur if really Tzaras Islandus is asur as well. What it means is zuhi, there is an afilu garam law, tzarasa by chalitza. This is a case where there's an isin afilu garam law, but at the same time the tzara requires chalitza. And the reason is because the whole zika shnei yavamim over here is only midrabanan. So therefore, the other tzara is not a tzaras erva midiraisa. She's only a tzaras erva midrabanan. So if she's only a tzaras erva midrabanan, you're going to have to do chalitza. But as it relates to islandus, I feel the chalitza leivaya. There, she's not even going to need chalitza because by tzaras islandus, it's a case where isin afilu was garamla, and the isin afilu garamla is on a dairaisa level, and as a result, there's an eshesach midairaisa, and therefore the tzaras islandus is going to be a tzaras erva midairaisa. My timer, what's the difference? Like we just spoke out, hadiraisa, hadirabban. Tzaras islandus is a dairaisa, as opposed to tzaras zika shnei yavamim. That's only midarabban. It's okay. Rav Asi said, Soras Islandus Asura. So we learned in our Mishnah, the Mishnah said, the Kulam and Mesu, or Mianu, or Niskarshu, Ichinimtu, Islandus. Sorry, say Mutaras. The Mishnah said that in the event that you had Reuven and Shimon that are brothers, Reuven's married to a woman that's an Erva to Shimon, and to another woman that's not an Erva to Shimon. And then the Erva died, or did Miyun, or got divorced, or she was found to be an islandess. The halacha is, Soros say Mutaras. The tzaras are going to be mutter. So if she's found to be an islandess, the halacha is tzaras say mutaras, l'chura tzaras islandess asura. Meaning, if the erva was found to be a islandess, that's a reason to say that it's more kuladig. Now that tzara is not going to be a tzaras erva. If anything, it's more chamor because now she's also a tzaras islandess, and we know tzaras islandess is aser. Tzaras islandess is aser even if the islandess is not an erva. So how could the Mishnah say that if the erva was found to be an islandess, so now you're going to have the halacha of tzaras islandess asur? So the Gemara says like tzaras islandess muteris. Gemara says like kasha, kancha, hikabur, kancha, hikabur. No, the Mishnah means something else. The Mishnah means what we mentioned when we introduced this part of the Gemara, and that is there's an islandess that if this woman's found to be an islandess, it knocks out the whole marriage. It's as if they were never married. That's what the Mishnah is referring to. The Mishnah is talking about that while the husband was alive, he found that his wife was an islandess. And he didn't want to be married to an islandess. So he tied it mekachtois, and Bezin said approved. As a result, it turns out they were never married. Oh, they were never married, so the tzara was never a tzara sever. But then when he dies, she's not going to be a tzara sever, which is consistent with everything else that the Mishnah said. But what was the safe of the Mishnah on that base? That even though there's a halach of tzara sever, but that's only if she's a tzara sever when the man dies. But if she's not a tzara sever when the man dies, why not? Because the erva died before Reuven died, or got divorced before Reuven died, or did Miyam before Reuven died, or in this case, she was found to be an islandess, so it was an akachtais before Reuven died. In all of those cases, the halacha is that she doesn't have a din anymore of a tzaras erva. That's the case where the Mishnah says that even if she was an erva, if she was nimtza islandess, the tzara is going to be mutter. When Rav Asi said islandess asur, it's talking about where it was hikkerba. He knew she was an islandess. And he married her anyways. Oh, so now the marriage is not a mekachtois. Now they're married. Now he dies. The islandess falls the yibum, and the other woman falls the yibum. Now the other woman is going to be a tzaras islandess. And Rav Asi's halach is tzaras islandess asura. And the Gemara says, "They cannot be. I'll prove to you this. This is the right shot." The Ketani, because if you look at the Mishnah says shem nimtzu, like Tani shahayu shmaminah. The Mishnah says the kulan and nimtzu islandess. Nimtzu means that he didn't expect it, and then he found out she was an islandess. So it was a mekachtois. So that's why the tzara is not going to be a problem. But if it was shahayu, that's a whole different story. Shahayu, if it was hikkerba, and the marriage is a good marriage, then tzaras islandess would be also. My Rava, so Rava said. So we just learned a whole bunch of gemaras. Tzaras soita, tzaras machzir gushasai, tzaras mamenes, tzaras islandess, right? We're just going through them as if, just gemaras, right? Zok the Gemara, my Rava said, here's the postscript. Hilchos of the halach is tzaras islandess muteris. Tzaras islandess is muter. Afilu hikkerba. Even if he knew, meaning nothing to do with mekachtois. Even if he knew she was an islandess, if an islandess and a tzara falls the yibam, the halach is tzaras islandess is going to be muter. Va'afilu tzaras bitoy islandess. Even if the islandess was an erva, the halach is the tzara is going to be muter. Meaning, not only is tzaras islandess muteris, meaning not only is islandess not a siba to pater a tzara, but islandess is actually a siba to take away the halacha of tzaras erva. So if it's bitay islandess, tzaras bitay islandess is going to be mutter. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah was not mashma that way. Because what the Mishnah said? The Mishnah was mashma only if it was nimtzu islandess, only else mekachtois. That's when the halacha is that tzaras bitay islandess or tzaras erva islandess, the halacha is going to be mutter. Tani shahayu. Rava changed the gears in the Mishnah. Even shahayu. Once she's an islandess, even if it's not mekachtois, if she's an islandess, there's no halach of tzaras erva. Yasser Rava, Rabbi Yochanan. Rava came from Eretz Yisrael. He said, name Rabbi Yochanan. He said, you want to know how they came out in Yevamos in Eretz Yisrael? He said, achas tzaras mamenes. Going back to tzaras mamenes. The achas tzaras islandess. The achas tzaras machzir gushasai. Kulam mutaris. So even though we had a sugya of tzaras mamenes asura, we had a sugya of tzaras islandess asura, we had a sugya of tzaras machzir gushasai asura. The halach is regarding all of them that they're going to be mutter. We're going to stop here and we're going to save the raid and Metz Hashem for tomorrow.